Shabbat Shalom. I'm really excited to talk to you today about this next part of Kabbalat Shabbat because today is the day when we get to talk about the Psalms that lead up to Lecha Dodi. And next week we'll talk about Lecha Dodi, so I'm going to save that for later. But today we get to talk about these 6 Psalms. Now, if you can remember how this is constructed, the Kabbalat Shabbat service contains 6 Psalms leading up to Lecha Dodi, and then it is followed by a couple of Psalms that are representative of Shabbat itself. So the 6 Psalms, what could 6 mean in Jewish tradition? Well, there are 6 active days of the week in which the world is created. And these 6 Psalms are supposed to reflect what is actually built into the fabric of the universe. And the language of them talks about how the world was created. The Psalms are Psalms 95 to 99, plus one more, which is 29. And they are listed as the coronation Psalms. They have an image of God as the sovereign of the universe. Now, it's really interesting if you take a look. There's a book written by Larry Hoffman that is called My People's Prayer Book, and it talks about different parts of pretty much every service. It's a really extraordinary book. And in one part of this book, Elliot Dorff, who is a leader in the conservative movement, points out that it was never guaranteed in life that the next day would arrive, that the next week would arrive, that the next year would arrive. So every time we get to these Psalms, it's brand new. It's as if the world has been recreated, created all over again just for us in that moment. And so it has this sort of energy to it, this sort of heightened feeling of, wow, the world has been created all over again just for me, just for us, just for this moment. So we begin with Lechune Ranena, which is Psalm 95, and the theme of this psalm is God as creator. Just as human kings were known to be builders, we see God as a builder of the world, the builder of builders. And the let us sing that we start out with, let us sing to God, let us sing about the creation of the universe. And it ends in this psalm with a little piece of negative. Don't be stubborn. Don't be like you were at Merivah. We're meant to remember experiences in our lives where we were stubborn. So not only do we have the creation of the world, but we have inside the fabric of the universe that inside of us, there are multiple ways that we have behaved, and let's focus on being the best part of ourselves, not the complaining sort, not the stubborn sort. We move on to Psalm 96, and you might recognize some of the music that we do in Psalm 96. Ya'aloz Sadai is within this psalm. And it's also the theme of kingship, but we move to an understanding of God as the judge of the universe, that we're supposed to have a sense of trembling and awe before God at this moment. 97, we begin to see not only the justice and the creation of the world, but the judgment and creation of the world, but also justice. That God is not only judgmental, but God is just. And so we're still in that kingship theme. We're really looking at how righteousness and justice in this case is just sort of baked into the way that the world was created. And we sing Or Zarua as a part of that psalm. The world was created, founded to have laws, to have a sense of order, to have a sense of a natural order to it in which life behaves according to laws, and there's a regularity, there's something we can trust in there. And then we get to Psalm 98. Okay, so we have creation, we have judgment, we have justice and righteousness. Now, what is God capable of doing? Is God capable of sustaining a world that's built in all of these ways? And we start to see ideas of military victory, but also that military victory is in the service of faithfulness to the house of Israel, that God is capable of doing anything to support us. A little shout out to those people who are left-handed. Our texts do not like left-handedness. They actually much prefer right-handedness, and here's one of the sources of that. God's holy arm is actually the right hand. And we know that in Latin, the word sinister actually comes from left-handedness, and we all know that to say right means just, proper, or correct. Well, this is embedded in this psalm also, so I apologize to left-handed creative sorts. Inside this psalm, we find Zamru Ladonai Bechinor, which is one of the songs that we sometimes sing on Shabbat, and we may be singing in the future. Psalm 99, we're getting closer to Shabbat. God is actually crowned here as king. We have Romamu, we rise up. We're lifted up the mountain at this moment. And then finally, Psalm 29 is added here to talk about the longevity of God's rule and reign. And that is expressed in the everlasting nature of God's voice, the power of God's voice throughout the world. Adonai Oz, Adonai granting strength to our people, is in this psalm. So you might notice that this imagery is all about God. Now, for some of us, that's striking, that's meaningful, that's powerful. If we have a faith that we like to talk about God, we like to bring God into our existence. And for other people, that's not as easy. And that's not something that's resonant with them. So let me take this in a slightly different direction for all of those people who are uncomfortable with the emphasis on God here. First of all, language only can describe what it is that we actually know. It's built on metaphor. All of our prayers are built on metaphor. So the people of our past used this metaphor because it was meaningful to them, but we're able to translate that metaphor a little bit differently. But what are we trying to get at here? We're trying to get at what is the construction of the universe? How is the world in which we live put together? We're trying to understand and articulate the purpose and the meaning of life in these texts. What kind of a world do we actually live in? And I think that that's crucial to any moment in time, certainly to this one. What kind of a world is it in which we live? Well, these Psalms tell us we live in a world that was created, intentionally created. You are not an accident. We are not an accident. The world may seem flawed, but in fact, it is full of beauty and order and stuff that was meant to be. We live in a world that is ruled, in which we're judged for our actions and behaviors, and the things we do matter. We live in a world where justice prevails, where righteousness is built in, even when it might not seem that way, when our laws guide us, and where we can trust in the very art of doing the right thing or the good thing. We live in a world where there's someone or something in charge, even when it feels like a free-for-all. We live in a world where we can discover or somehow find or hear a guiding voice, something that's powerful and sensitive and meaningful and deep if we listen. If we listen, we can find help in navigating those details of our lives. These are the things that we assert in Kabbalat Shabbat as we approach this moment of rest, a time when we're supposed to consider who we are, what the meaning of our lives might be, not spend time creating more stuff, but just receive gratitude for what we already are and the world we already have. I hope that's been quickly informative for you about the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat. There are so many more things to say about that, and maybe someday we will get together, teach a class on the whole thing, and be able to look at them one by one. I'm wishing you a Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat full of peace and wholeness, and a little more understanding about how our world is built.